This is the fifth gate of Kamasaka Zen, Shakyamuni Equanimity. This is Dharma talk number 8. And it's about the interconnection of the koan, the moon and the water, the image in the mirror, and its interconnection with the fifth ox-herding picture, taming the ox, and its interconnection with the fifth gate of Kamasaka Zen, Shakyamuni Equanimity. The beauty of Zen lies in its ability to convey profound teachings through metaphors and paradoxes, which challenge the mind's habitual patterns of thinking. Two powerful metaphors, the moon in the water and the image in the mirror. They evoke key Zen principles about the nature of reality, about perception, and about self-identity. And these teachings resonate deeply with the fifth ox-herding picture, the taming of the ox, and the fifth gate of Kamasaka Zen, which embodies the spirit of Shakyamuni and the principle of equanimity. So these three elements, the koan of the moon in the water, the ox-herding picture of taming the ox, and the gate of Shakyamuni, equanimity, are clearly interconnected. Together they represent the transition from inner conflict and struggle towards peaceful acceptance, towards clarity of vision, and towards living with a calm, equanimous mind in this chaotic world in which we live. Zen often uses images of reflection to point to the illusionary and impermanent nature of reality. So the metaphor, the moon in the water, refers to the reflection of the moon on the surface of a lake or a pond. Though the moon appears to be in the water, it's merely a reflection. The moon itself remains high above and unaffected by the movements or disturbances in the water below. Similarly, the image in the mirror, it points to the idea of reflection as representations, not the real objects themselves, simply representations. And no matter how accurately the mirror reflects an image, the reflection is inherently devoid of substance. It is an illusion. And these images prompt a direct inquiry into the nature of reality and also into the mind. And it's in Zen practice that encourages us as practitioners to ask, what is real? What is illusion? In daily life, we often mistake reflections for reality. We become attached to thoughts. We become attached to emotions. We become attached to identities as if they were solid and unchanging. But just like the moon in the water or the image in the mirror, our mental constructions are simply transient and they lack inherent existence. They are reflections of a deeper process, but they're not the substance of reality itself. The metaphor suggests that we perceive as reality, what we perceive as reality is akin to a reflection, impermanent, it's substantial, and it's subject to change. And the ultimate truth, like the real moon or the real object reflected in the mirror, lies beyond appearances. So, to see beyond these reflections is to recognize the empty nature of thoughts and perceptions, and then to awaken to a deeper, non-dualistic awareness. The ox herding pictures are a series of 10 images, accompanied by poetic verses, and they describe the stages of Zen practice and awakening. The fifth picture that we're talking about here, Taming of the Ox, represents a significant shift in the practitioner's journey. At this stage, the ox, a metaphor for the mind or the ego, is no longer wild and uncontrollable. The ox, which had once roamed freely and caused mischief, is now being tamed, and it's being tamed by the ox herder. And this reflects the practitioner's ability to gain control over their mind, steadying it through diligent practice. In earlier stages of the ox herding pictures, there is a great struggle between the practitioner and the ox. And this struggle, it symbolizes the practitioner's battle with delusion, the battle with desire and distraction. And by the time we reach the fifth picture, the practitioner has made considerable progress. Okay, so the ox is not yet fully transformed, but it's also no longer a force of chaos. And then the practice of mindfulness, meditation, and self-discipline has begun to bear fruit. And the ox represents the raw energy of the mind, which can be wild and untamed. But then, properly trained, it can be simply directed towards awakening. So the taming of the ox corresponds to the taming of the self. The practitioner learns to control their desires. They learn to control their attachments and impulses. So the ox herder symbolizes that part of ourselves that seeks to align with wisdom, to align with clarity, to align with compassion. And through the consistent application of meditative and mindful practices, the ox herder learns to ride the ox, guiding it without force, but simply with gentle awareness. So the fifth gate of Kammasaka is associated with Shakyamuni Buddha, with his principles of equanimity. Because equanimity is a state of mental calmness, composure, and even temper, particularly in difficult situations. And Shakyamuni as the historical Buddha, represents the ideal of complete equanimity, which is central to the Zen path. As I've said before, equanimity is not the suppression of emotions, but the ability to remain centered and balanced, regardless of external circumstances or internal emotional states. And equanimity arises when we recognise the impermanent nature of all things, and we cease being attached simply to fleeting experiences. And it is this that mirrors the teachings of the moon in the water and the image in the mirror. The practitioner realizes that ups and downs of life are like reflections. They're temporary and illusory, and therefore not worth clinging to. So the equanimous mind observes these reflections with clarity, neither grasping nor resisting, but accepting each moment simply as it comes. So the integration of equanimity with the taming of the ox is significant. As the practitioner learns to control their mind, they learn to control their emotions. They also cultivate the capacity to remain equanimous. The wild ox represents the chaotic, reactive mind, while the tame ox represents the mind in equanimity. And then in the fifth gate, the practitioner begins to embody the qualities of the Shakyamuni Buddha, who faced the full spectrum of human experience. He faced the concept of suffering. He faced temptations. He faced joy and unwavering. And he did it with unwavering equanimity. So the metaphors of the moon and the water and the image in the mirror point to the impermanent and the illusory nature of the world that we perceive. In Zen, the challenge is not merely to intellectually understand this as a truth, but to realize it deeply in one's personal experience. So the ox represents this wild, untamed mind, a mind that gets caught up in all these illusions. But through practice, we as practitioners can learn to tame the ox, gradually gaining mastery over the mind and developing clarity in the midst of illusion. And it's at this stage the practitioner is no longer fooled by the reflections. They see that thoughts and emotions and perceptions are like the moon in the water, appearing real but lacking true substance. And this insight allows us as practitioners to remain calm and steady, even in difficult circumstances. And as the equanimity of the fifth gate arises, it arises naturally when one stops reactive or stops being reactive to the illusions of the mind. So equanimity, as represented by the Buddha, is the fruit of taming the ox and the fruit of being able to see beyond the illusions. Now the practitioner can live in the world without being disturbed by it. They engage with life fully, but with inner peace that is unaffected by the ups and downs of our daily existence. Because the ox is now tamed, and the practitioner rides it with ease. And this symbolises the harmony between mind and body, self and reality. So, as I've said, equanimity does not mean indifference or detachment from life. On the contrary, it allows the practitioner to engage more deeply with life simply because they are no longer driven by desires, no longer driven by fears or illusions. So the moon in the water and the image in the mirror represents the play of life's experiences. But the practitioner, having tamed the ox, understands that these are only reflections of a deeper, unchanging truth. And it's the integration of these three teachings that has a profound implications for the Zen practitioner. Firstly, it invites a shift in perception. The practitioner learns to see life as it truly is, transitory and illusionary, like the moon in the water. And this realization helps to diminish attachments as one understands that clinging to what is impermanent only leads to emotional discontentment, upset, suffering. The second, the process of taming the ox emphasized the importance of disciplined practice. Zen practice requires dedication and patience. The mind, like the ox, cannot be tamed in a single day. It takes time, it takes effort, and it most certainly takes perseverance. And then through regular meditation, through regular mindfulness and self-awareness, we as practitioners can gradually gain mastery over our mental habits and our emotional responses. And then finally, equanimity becomes the foundation for living a balanced and peaceful life. With a calm and steady mind, now the practitioner can navigate the challenges of life without being overwhelmed by them. So equanimity allows for full engagement with life while maintaining a inner sense of peace and stability. This is the essence of the Buddha's teachings, living in harmony with the world, free from the suffering caused by attachment and aversion. So, let's have a final look at it. The koan, the moon in the water, the image in the mirror, it points to the illusory nature of reality, urging us as practitioners to look beyond appearances and to recognize the empty, transient nature of thoughts and also the transitive nature of our perceptions. And then the fifth ox herding picture, taming the ox, symbolises our practitioner's journey towards mastery of the mind. While the fifth gate of Kamasaka embodies the principle of the Shakyamuni's equanimity, a state of balance and calm in the face of life's ever-changing reflections. Together, these three teachings form a cohesive path of Zen practice, leading the practitioner from a state of inner turmoil and confusion to a state of clarity, to a state of peace, and to a state of equanimity. So through taming the ox, recognize the illusory nature of reality, and cultivating equanimity, the practitioner attains a deep realization of the interconnectedness of all things, achieving a state of harmony with life as it is. And this integration provides a powerful framework for living with awareness, compassion, and wisdom. And they are grounded in the fundamental Zen understanding that all of life's experiences are like the moon in the water, beautiful but fleeting and ultimately insubstantial. I hope you've enjoyed this talk. Thank you for listening.